earlier. This really started as a pile of scrap, and you can use any kind of wood you want. In this case, we're using pine, and we simply alternate the layers so that the grains run in opposite directions, glue it up, clamp it tightly overnight, and we end up with a blank like this. And as you can see here, the edges are still very rough from that glue up, so using the bandsaw, which is the only tool we're going to use for this project, just about, we're going to cut off those rough edges. I've smoothed the sides on my blank, and I'm ready to go on to the next step. I've got this little mock-up here which will help us illustrate how we solve the mystery of this cute little box. I'm going to cut the two sides off, and I've arbitrarily measured this about 1/2 inch. I've got my two sides cut off. Before I made that cut, however, I drew this V on here so I make sure I get the right side back on the right side of the box and the left side on the left side of the box. The next thing I'm going to do is cut out the drawer, and I've got it drawn on here. Sort of arbitrarily did that, but it's about 1/2 inch on each side. You may begin to figure out the mystery of how this box gets put together now. We've made our radius cut. The drawer comes out like this. There's two more things to do. Cut the sides off and make this radius cut inside here, hollow out the drawer. We're all set up here on the bandsaw. I've already cut off the two sides. We're ready to make this cut right here. Well, I guess there really wasn't much mystery to our jewelry box after all. What I've done is got the glue put on both parts, the drawer and the box. I've made my registration marks line up. Now about the only thing to do is round off the corners here. You can do that with either a belt sander or a router. After that, the only thing left to do is put on your finish. Now we're set to round off the corners on the belt sander. The belt sander is going to do something else for us too, because we can sand all these surfaces that have glue lines and other things on it. Now, ordinarily, I'd be using some dust protection, but because we have a dust collection system hooked up to our belt sander, that's not necessary. Watch how easy this is. How do you like that?
You are getting a wonderful polish on that box. That's great.
It shows you what you can do with pretty ordinary lumber. We started with those plain white pine boards, as you know. We sanded it very carefully after everything was assembled, put on some stain to change the color, and then we're waxing it to give it this nice gloss.
That's great. I'm using a salad bowl finish. It's non-toxic, which of course we would want to use since we'll be putting food on our cutting board. You know, I love finishing my projects because you spend all this time measuring it, cutting it, putting it together, and sanding it. But when you put the finish on, it's like the color and the grain just pops out and comes to life.
Well, your cutting board really looks great. I love the way maple just
great?
has so much life in it.
Look
it
at
is
that.
Just marvelous. That is really, you did a great job on that.
These would make great presents too.
Oh yeah, if somebody gets something you made yourself, boy, that's the way to do it. My own personal opinion is that the finest small projects are ones I turn on the lathe. I've done all these within the last few months in my own shop, and these are terrific because lathe turning, everything is so plastic. You never really know how it's going to turn out until you're really finished with it. This is a piece of governor's plum, and when I started, I had no idea what the finished project would look like. Look at this, no 90 degrees. It's all really just kind of comes together as you're doing it. But a little word of warning, don't try to turn on a lathe until you've had really good instruction. And what we're going to show you today is just informational. This is our project for today. It's 5 pieces of walnut glued up together. We've got a little block on the back to take our face plate screws. We're going to rough this out on the bandsaw and make a bowl out of it. Now the next thing I do is start working with this bowl gouge. I'll really design the outside profile of the bowl. got the outside of the bowl turned just where I want it. Now I'm going to go to the inside. To make turning the inside easy, I'm going to drill a hole just to the depth I want the center of the bottom, and then start my actual turning. We're going to keep our tools razor sharp at all times. Now we're ready to attack the inside of this baby. Okay, we finished our sanding. Now we're going to hit this with some tung oil, and I'm going to saturate this rag with it, and with the bowl turning in there, put it on. Isn't that great? We're just going to work that right in there. We'll come on top of that, sand it a little bit more. Is that beautiful or what? Okay, now we're ready to put the oil on the outside of this bowl. Isn't that beautiful? Well, there's our finished product. I hope you like it. Remember, don't try a bowl turning project unless you've really had adequate instruction yourself. But I do hope this has kind of inspired you to get busy in your own workshop. Well, our bathroom shelf sure came together fast.
It sure did. You know, if we'd gone out and bought this ready-made, it would have cost us far more than it did to build it ourselves.
I hope these small projects we showed you today will prove useful to you, be fun to make, and that you'll use these techniques on some bigger woodworking projects. I'm Les Cizik.
And I'm Avian Rogers. Thanks a lot for joining us.